Hey, the Scottish Networking Show. It's good to be back. My name's Stefan Thomas. I'm the author of Business Networking for Dummies and Instant Networking and Win the Room. I'm proud of all of those books, and it's brilliant to be speaking to you here today at the Scottish Networking Show. But let's be honest, I'm doing this from my home in Oxfordshire because travelling's a bit tricky at the moment, but I've always loved my time at the Scottish Networking Show. I've loved my time at Expo Scotland, and it's brilliant to be back. I'm going to be talking about online networking this morning because that's really important right now. I'm really glad that you've made the decision to be here today and listen to all of the wonderful speakers that are here and hopefully do some networking as well. That's what I'm going to help you get the most of. Do you know what? A load of people are still deciding that they don't need to go virtual networking or that they're going to wait until things get back to normal. You know, as I'm recording this in England, we've just learnt that we can only have gatherings of 6 people in real life, and that's going to go on for a little while yet. And I've been out virtually networking since the middle of March, since all of this stuff started happening. I'm going to give you some hints and tips as to how to get the most out of it. But the first thing I'm going to say is please make sure that you are out there at the moment. Now, more than ever before in my career, it has been so important for you to be out there and visible for the right reasons as well. I'll talk about that a little bit this morning. Hiding at the moment simply isn't an option, and with all of the opportunity that we've actually got to be out there speaking to other people, to other business people, I do hope that you're taking advantage of it, and the very fact that you're here today shows that you are. Do go and check out the brilliant networking opportunities that this show offers and that some of the exhibitors offer as well. And I'll be hanging around for a bit of the day to answer your networking questions. So let's start talking about that. Virtual networking and how to join up your networking. When people go to networking events, when you came here today, if you've given up some of your time to be here today, watching us and interacting with the other people, my bet is that you came here for the sake of your business and not for the sake of my business or anyone else's. Not that any of us are selfish, it's just that as business people, if we give up time and if we pay to go to networking events, we probably do it because we hope to get something positive out of it for our business and for ourselves. That's completely okay. That's completely normal. So think about that as you introduce yourself to people, as you talk to people today. What I find is that so many people go to networking events and think that their job there is to tell everyone else all about them. But you're the only person in the room who's interested in you in the nicest possible way. Even if other people are good conversationalists, even if they know a bit about networking and know about having sensible business conversations with people, people go to networking events, people go to events like this for the sake of their business, not yours. That's always interested me. When I turn up at a networking event, I set my bar for what I want to achieve very low. What I'm not looking to do here today is make sales. In fact, 80% or so of the people who buy from me didn't express any interest in buying from me the first time that we met. That's not to say that you can't, by the way, and I can take credit and debit cards. But most of the people here didn't come here to buy from me, didn't come here to buy from you. So think about how you approach it. My goal at networking events is to form some new connections and to strengthen some existing ones. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. I wrote that for my first book. What I'm looking to do here today is start some new conversations. What so many people seem to want to do is try and get the whole of the conversation into one networking event. All that I'm looking to do is start some conversations and take some conversations forward. So if I'm talking to you for the first time, if this is the first time you've seen me speak, then this gives us an opportunity to start the conversation. And I very much hope that we'll continue and connect with each other on LinkedIn afterwards and continue the conversation from there. If you've seen me speak a few times, if I've known you for a few years, this gives both of us another opportunity to strengthen that connection. It's actually really sensible use of my time because I can meet some new people and strengthen some existing connections as well. And in a busy world, actually reminding people that we exist by doing things like this is really vitally important. So think about that as you approach people. Also think about what you talk to other people about. One of the biggest dangers, I think, in networking always is this idea that we should all have an elevator pitch, that we should all be immediately ready to go and tell the other person all about us. Because the first thing that presupposes is that they're actually interested in us. And they probably came here today to talk to people about their own stuff. And particularly if they're exhibitors, they definitely came here today and paid to be here today to talk to people about their stuff. And in a world where everyone immediately starts throwing their stuff at you, why not be the person who's interested? The best book that I ever read about this stuff, well before I started my networking journey, I read in 1989. The book is called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's written in 1937. And what Dale Carnegie says in that book is that you'll win more friends in 2 months by being genuinely interested in them than you will in 2 years by trying to be interesting to them. And if you think about how we approach networking, so many of us, and social media come to that, so many of us throw ourselves out there with the aim of telling people all about us. What about being genuinely interested in the other guy first? What about finding out all about them in the first place? I've got two big problems with the elevator pitch. And I'm even writing a book about it. My first problem is that we're in Scotland and virtually we're in Glasgow, and we call it a lift, for God's sake, not an elevator. When I do that in real life, I always kid myself that I get a laugh for that joke, but probably just as much as I've got here today. So that's my first problem with it. My second problem is that if you really were in a lift, an elevator with someone, with this idea that you've only got 60 seconds, you're only going up to the 3rd floor, and you've got to tell them all about your business, are they really going to listen to you, or are they going to be absolutely dying to get out of the door at the time when you do get to the 3rd floor? But what about if you show interest in other people? What about if you play a slightly longer game on this? Showing interest in other people and being genuine about it absolutely rocks. One of the things that it does is it removes the pressure from you to feel that you have to sell yourself and sell your business to that other person in that initial conversation. All that you're looking to achieve is to start a conversation which you can then carry on at the networking event, after the networking event, and so on and so forth. We've got so many tools to do so. Being genuinely interested in other people also means that any call that you make in the future will be warm and not cold. For example, when I started my career, which was in estate agency in 1988, we used to be taught how to ask people questions to find out a little bit more about them. What that meant was that at any point in the future, if we picked up the phone to them, we could say, hey, Mr. Smith, remember that you told me that you were really interested in football, or your kids went to this school, or you needed to get to this town for work? Well, I found a house which is close to the football ground. I'm not into football myself. Not a popular thing to say in Glasgow, I think. Or, I know I've got a house which is within walking distance of your kids' school, or gives you really easy access to the A40 to get to Oxford on your way to work. Was a much simpler way to start a conversation with people than simply saying, oh, hi, I've got a new house on the market. Think about that in terms of your business as well. If you genuinely get to know other people, and if you genuinely get to know what they need, perhaps you can help them with that in future. Not just by selling them something, but perhaps you could be the person who could refer someone to them or give them a resource which will be really helpful to them. So spend time being genuinely interested in other people. It really, really does make a difference. Makes you much more popular at networking events as well, rather than just being the person who's trying to sell to everyone else. If you need to do a 40 or 60 seconds at a networking event, as very often we do, think about that in those terms as well. Rather than trying to tell people everything about your business, just give them enough that they want to find out more. Don't try and give them so much that they feel that they don't have to talk to you. And it's perfectly okay to fluff your words as well. There was an illustration of just that. Couple of really specific things about virtual networking, which I've learned along the way. I've done a lot of video, a lot of live video along the way as well, and all of that's come to bear fruit with this virtual networking. When you're looking at the screen now, when I'm talking to you, it appears that I'm maintaining eye contact with you, but in fact what I'm doing is talking to the little camera in the corner of my device. When you deliver your 40 or 60 seconds at a networking event, remember that if you look at people's faces on the screen, it's going to look as if you're looking away. Actually looking at the little camera gives everyone the impression that you're maintaining eye contact with them. And the stupid thing is that even though you now know that that's false, you now don't know that I'm talking to the camera in the middle of the screen. I'm not actually looking directly at you. As human beings, sometimes or somehow we still prefer it if it feels as if the other person is looking at us. The other thing that I'd suggest, and has worked really well for me, at a lot of virtual networking events, as well as delivering our 40 or 60 seconds to the event, we also get an opportunity to put a written version of it in the chat. I would really recommend that you have that written version pre-written, ready to go, so that when you've done or just doing your 40 or 60 seconds, you can just copy and paste it into the chat box rather than having to be typing. That's exactly how I type all through the next person's 60 seconds. So have it written, have it ready to go. You can spell check it. You can make sure you get your links in there. Big tip on that one as well. Pop your LinkedIn link on anything that you put in the chat box so that people can easily connect with you after the networking event and continue that conversation that you've just started. So look at the camera, because it will feel like you're maintaining eye contact, and also have something written, pre-written and ready to go. By the way, if you use Apple devices, you can write it on one device, copy it on that device and paste it on the other. You can copy from one device and paste it onto another Apple device. I only learnt that about 3 months ago and it rocked my world. So use the networking event as the start of the conversation. Remember that so much of networking happens outside of the networking event. And remember as well that a load of your value, particularly if you offer similar services to other people who are around you, and all of us are in competition in some way, shape or form, remember that a load of your value is based on your reputation and your profile. Something I've only started talking about recently, but I increasingly know is really important. If you're using networking events to start the conversation, think really hard about what people are going to find when they follow up with you, when they connect with you on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever it happens to be. You should be connecting with them, but the thought process is exactly the same. What are people going to find when they check you out online? I have put very, very many hours worth of effort into creating my reputation, into making sure that I put loads of video content out there, loads of written content. I write articles on LinkedIn, my own website, Medium, all sorts of places. I do videos on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. I do a podcast. I've made sure that if people check me out, that they can find out that I know what I'm talking about, or at the very least, they can make their own decision whether I know what I'm talking about. When people check you out online, what are they finding? See, here's the thing. Let's say you're really good at what you do, and yet you're pretty much invisible online when someone checks you out. And let's say that same person has met someone else at a networking event who does something similar to you. They aren't as good at it as you, but they've got a ton of content out there. They've got loads of stuff out there on the internet talking about what they do. One of the people that I follow pretty religiously, Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about being the authority of content. The authority of content. The person who talks most online about their stuff becomes the default authority. I talk a lot about networking, and what that means for me is that when someone asks a question about networking somewhere else on the internet, very, very often people say, oh, you should go and talk to Stefan Thomas, because I've put effort into building my reputation online, putting loads and loads of helpful content out there, so that after someone's met me at a networking event, if they're deciding whether they want to work with me, and there's going to be a very quick ad break in a second, if people are deciding whether they want to work with me, then they can see whether I know what I'm talking about. Can people see the same about you? See, the thing is, all of this stuff, creating articles, written content, short form posts, videos, podcasts, all of it these days is broadly speaking free, but it takes a bit of your effort. The real opportunity for all of us is that most people won't bother. Most people won't bother to put the effort that they need into building their reputation. What it means for me is a number of things. It means that if I turn up at a networking event now anywhere in the world, some people in the room will have heard of me. All of this effort was put in well before I started writing the book, well before I was asked to write the book, and has continued after I wrote the book as well, because it's constant. It's not just because I've got the book I can stop now. Trust me on that one. I still need to be out there. I still need to be making myself visible and relevant. Let's talk about that for a second. Being visible online is really simple. You just post a lot. Being relevant, being visible for the right reasons, having a reputation for the right reasons, that does take a bit more effort. That does take thinking about what you're going to put out there. That does take making sure that you're putting out regular, useful content. The intent at which I put content out there is simply to help people get more out of networking, so that people can see that I'm generous with my time, generous with my advice, and so on. The upshot of all of that is that it builds my profile. People can see that I know what I'm talking about. And also it does something else, as it's doing with you right now. What I get a lot now from people who connect with me, from people who see me at speaking events, and crucially from people who work with me, who want to work with me before I've ever met them, is that they tell me we felt like we already knew you. So having heard my name, having met me at a networking event, people check me out online, and the volume, and I have to say these days, the quality of the stuff that I put out there is good enough so that people feel like they already know me. They can get to see a ton of pre-recorded and professional video content of me speaking, plus a load of stuff like this, which I deliver straight to camera, plus live stuff where I actually answer people's questions live online, so that they feel like they already know me. If you think about that thing we talk about in networking, the meet, like, know, trust, or know, like, trust, depending on which flavour of networking you particularly enjoy, that trust is significantly enhanced when people feel like they already know you. People feel like they know what it is that you stand for, that you know what you're talking about. So think about that. Get yourself to networking events, think about helping the other people in the room, and make absolutely sure that when people check you out online, that they've got something to check out. If you go and look for the Google 0 Moment of Truth, which was written like 5 years ago, I think maybe even longer than that, Google talk about the fact that 70% of people will research a supplier online before they pick up the phone to them. So this isn't about occasionally losing sales when people are speaking to you. This is about the people who never get round to speaking to you because they check you out, there's nothing to find, and someone else who does something similar to you has put a ton of content out there, so they feel like they already know them. The real opportunity is that most people won't bother. The real opportunity is that a load of people will listen to me this afternoon and not take action on it. I've got completely cool with that, but I know the advice is sound. I know that if you are the one who's going to go out there and make an absolute difference and consistently network, consistently be interested in the other guy, consistently put content out there, that it will make a huge difference to your success from networking. And the final thing, so many people who are in business for themselves forget to show people where the till is. Before I started estate agency full-time, my first full-time job in 1988, I had Saturday jobs starting in a shoe shop in 1983. If you go into any shoe shop in Scotland, England, Wales, or I guess anywhere in the world, if you go into any fashion retailer and look up at the ceiling, somewhere it will say, "Please pay here," or words to that general effect. When you're talking about your business online, when you're at networking events, please remember to occasionally show people where the till is. Make it very clear, having put all of this effort into showing people who you are, into giving them good advice, into putting good content out there, please make sure that they can see exactly what you sell and make it simple for them to buy it as well. I talked about Gary Vaynerchuk earlier on, and in fact, just behind the camera that I'm talking to is his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, where Gary talks about putting tons of content out there, useful content, without asking for anything in return, because occasionally when you do occasionally put the right hook in there, I have very obviously never boxed myself. When you do occasionally put the right hook in there, when every few days, whatever it happens to be, you put an advert out there for your stuff, people don't mind seeing it because all of the rest of the content you've put out there is really helpful. Remember to occasionally show people where the till is. Remember to show them exactly what you sell and make it easy for them to buy from you. I've done so much networking over the years, and what I fell in love with it was having done about 1,500 networking events now, having always been told in the rest of my career in shoe shops, in estate agency, that you only got one chance to make an impression. Having done 1,500 networking events, having spoken here in Scotland about a dozen times now, what I absolutely fell in love with about networking is that this was the place where I got a second chance, or even a 1,500th chance to make an impression. Scottish Networking Show, thank you very much for listening. My name's Stefan Thomas. I'll be hanging around to answer any questions that you've got. Thank you very much.